I want to now turn to the P, people in Aspire. Jamaica's greatest asset is our people. That is why this government continues to invest in education, training, and job opportunities, ensuring that every Jamaican, regardless of background, has the chance to learn, earn, and thrive. Through programs like the LIFT program, that is Learning and Investment for Transformation, and the CARE program, Community Action for Rewarding Engagement, we are directly supporting young Jamaicans on their journey to skill development and employment. The second cohort of the LIFT is underway, providing education, mentorship, and work experience for youth who need a start. Also, over 1,250 unattached youth across all 63 communities are now enrolled in training under CARE, receiving stipends and transport support to remove financial barriers. Madam Speaker, these programs transform lives. A school leaver from an inner city community or a rural parish can now access training and have a real pathway to a career. Heart touches the lives of everyday people every day. You know, Madam Speaker, I was in Brownstown recently. I just stopped in the town and I saw the Heart outreach workers with a little tent in the middle of the town encouraging people to come and sign up. I was very heartened to see Heart doing that. So Heart is out there doing their best to try and pull people in who are not currently in the labor force or who are seeking a job but are unskilled. Heart is actively out there trying to bring them in. And almost every year I come here, Madam Speaker, we come with some different form of program that's, specifically catered to a certain set age profile or life cycle to attract, because, Madam Speaker, at 3.5% unemployment, we are technically almost at full employment. And the leader of the opposition and the opposition spokesman mentioned that the pressure is increasing for us to find other solutions for labor. But before we go that route, Madam Speaker, the government is going to work hard, explore every option, give every incentive, so that those who stay by the roadside and dig out their hand middle, as we say, we give them an opportunity to put a tool in their hand. So today I have Akon Pitt and Gary Smith with us. Akon was unsure about his next step after his stellar CXC results. At the behest of his Member of Parliament, Akon was the Member of Parliament, Alando Terrelong. Akon was a participant in the first cohort of the LIFT program. After training, he was placed and paid at Carimed, where he had an exceptional journey. Akon is now at the Jamaica Cooperative Insurance Agency. Gary is a 20-year-old pursuing a business administration level 2 certification as an on-the-job trainee at Coleville Training Limited under the CARE program. He dreams of becoming a certified engineering contractor and establishing his own air conditioning repair business. Gary is now closer to realizing his dream. These are both young men that the government has empowered through the Heart Trust NSTA. Akon and Gary are from the community of Gregory Park in Minister Terry Long's constituency in the soon-to-be parish of Portmore. There are hundreds of thousands of Akons and Gary that we have empowered through skills training since 2020. 552,534 to be exact. And this is primarily, look, since the elimination of fees, over 150,000 persons have signed up for the various vocational programs at Heart. So, let's be clear, Heart is not a perfect institution, but it is a hard-working institution. Madam Speaker, we have already had significant success in public-private partnerships and the apprenticeship model with the Amber Heart Academy. Nearly 500 youth have graduated specializing in data analytics, cybersecurity, web and app development. Most have secured paid internships with career pathways. 112 JDF soldiers are also now being trained in coding, which will strengthen the JDF's technological capabilities. Madam Speaker, building on the success of this model, I'm pleased to announce an expanded apprenticeship program in critical industries that urgently need more skilled labor. These industries include construction and the hospitality sector. Over the next 2 years, 300 young people will receive paid hands-on training alongside industry professionals. Each participant will earn a weekly stipend of $13,500 to $16,500 with a 10% set aside as compulsory savings. This approach allows our youth to build a career, support their families, and contribute to the economy all at the same time. Madam Speaker, we will begin this pilot in conjunction with the Sandals Corporate University. Additionally, later this year, we will establish the Institute of Higher Apprenticeship in partnership with industry and the Inter-American Development Bank. This will provide advanced vocational certification while participants work in the field. A young person will be able to pursue, let's say, a degree in logistics or a diploma in manufacturing through an apprenticeship track, gaining academic credentials and practical experience at the same time upon graduating. Upon graduating, they will be ready to take on higher paying jobs and be certified. Madam Speaker, the jobs of tomorrow demand skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. To prepare our students, Heart is investing $400 million to establish state-of-the-art Heart. I'm going to say STEM labs, but I'm going to change it, Madam Speaker, because in our culture, the creative industry is a strategic industry for us, and it is part of our strategy for diversification. So we are the only government to take up $1 billion and place it at the disposal of the film industry. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. That is the largest budgetary allocation to the creative sector ever. So, you know, let's not get drawn into. So, Madam Speaker, HART is investing 400 million to establish state-of-the-art STEAM labs. So this will also include not just things for mechatronics and engineering and so forth, but also computers for creative designs, for managing sound stages and so forth. So within those labs, there will be a place for persons who would want to pursue the technical elements of the creative industry. So these labs, as I said before, will feature robotic kits, virtual welding simulators, drone technology, hydroponics, and 3D printers, ensuring that our children from all backgrounds can access world-class technical education. To further support STEM talent, we are launching the Boost Building Opportunities for Outstanding STEM Students program. Beginning in April 2025, HART graduates in Level 4 STEM-related courses will be eligible for a grant of up to $300,000 to purchase specialized tools, software to start their business. Madam Speaker, I know that there are many in Jamaica who are skeptical of technology. They see technology as a threat. Madam Speaker, we can't view technology in that way. Technology is immanent, it is ubiquitous, and it is universal. Can't escape it. AI, that is artificial intelligence, is reshaping industries worldwide. When the first industrial revolution started, Jamaica was still a colony. That's a reality. So Jamaica didn't benefit from the first industrial revolution. And in fact, in a strange way, when you read Capitalism and Slavery, you would see that it is technically the advance of technology that made slavery unprofitable, and which technically, depending on which historian you read, led to the end of slavery as an economic way of production. So technology is not bad. Technology is a liberating tool if you approach it the right way. So, Madam Speaker, when the information industrial revolution came about, the information age, which is not more than 50 years old, Jamaica was still trying to industrialize. So we missed another wave of technology as a colonial developing country. We are now in the 5th industrial revolution, and Jamaica cannot afford to be left behind. Technology provides the ability to leapfrog, and we must position ourselves to do so. I have given directives to the Minister of Education to ensure that AI is prominent in our national training and development strategy, which is why we appointed an AI task force. This government is committed to ensuring that Jamaica is an active player and not a spectator in the global AI revolution. From the recommendations of the National Artificial Intelligence Task Force, we are implementing an AI work readiness strategy that includes integrating AI and coding into school curricula at all levels, and promoting dedicated teacher training programs on AI. And we are launching a prompt engineering course through the Heart Trust NSTA to train students and public sector professionals in using AI tools effectively. Madam Speaker, in partnership with the Amber Group, the government will also establish a cutting-edge local AI lab, a public-private center of excellence where developers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and students can collaborate on AI solutions. The AI lab will serve as the catalyst for a new era of technological advancement in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, AI will disrupt some traditional jobs, but it will create new high-paying opportunities. This government is ensuring that Jamaicans are equipped to seize those opportunities and lead in the digital economy. Madam Speaker, we will also be using AI tools to help our children learn. We are developing the Jamaica Learning Assistant, a groundbreaking AI-powered platform designed to revolutionize learning with an end-to-end AI-generated and curated content, fully aligned with the national curriculum. And I don't know if the video is cued, but let me give you a preview of what it could do.
Introducing Jamaica Learning Assistant, the world's most comprehensive AI educational platform, reimagining learning for Jamaica. It's like giving every child a personal mentor who adapts to their needs and pace. Interactive adventures that make science and math come alive. Human-like AI tutors, detailed explanations, humor, poems, interactive tests, mind maps for visual understanding, videos and real-life applications of knowledge, so each lesson isn't just learned, but lived.
Who are scientists?
Scientists are people who study the natural world using observation, experimentation, and reasoning.
Teacher, tell me a joke about scientists.
Why did the scientists bring a ladder to the lab? Because they wanted to reach new heights in their research.
Come with us as we transform education for all our children.
Madam Speaker, we are determined not to be left behind in this revolution. So we are going to be early adopters of the technology. And I encourage all parents, if you haven't yet done so, download one of the artificial intelligence apps, play around with it, ask it questions. You would be surprised how well structured, coordinated, and in-depth the answers you receive are. You would be surprised how you can train these AI bots to do specific tasks. So I would encourage all Jamaicans not to fear AI, but to develop an inquisitive mind about it. Let us not become spectators while another wave of technological development is going on. Let us ride that wave.